Have you ever, wanted to know more about a specific place and time in history?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, say, Ashley County, Arkansas, back in 1890.
Okay, yeah.
But then the thought of reading all those old documents, it's just so intimidating, right?
You can be, yeah.
You want to be informed, but who has time to get bogged down in all those details?
Right.
Well, that's where we come in, right here on the Deep Dive.
Exactly. Today, we're taking you on a deep dive into Ashley County, Arkansas, circa 1890.
And our main source for this deep dive, a fascinating book called Biographical and Historical Memoirs.
Now, this wasn't just some small local project. This is
Ah.
part of a much bigger effort to document counties all across the U.S. back in the late 19th century.
Wow, and we're looking at an exact replica of the original pages.
Yeah, a genuine glimpse into the past.
So it's like we're doing the heavy lifting for you,
Yeah.
sifting through descriptions of the land, the climate, the resources.
Right, and we have all these really interesting biographies of the people who lived in Ashley County back then.
So our mission, we want to pull out the most captivating and revealing insights from all these sources.
Yeah, to give you a real sense of what it was like to be there.
And who these people were.
Right.
What mattered to them.
Exactly.
All without you having to spend hours poring over primary source material.
We'll do the initial deep dive so you can grasp the essence.
So first things first, let's set the scene. Geographically, where are we talking about here?
Okay, picture this. It's 1890, and Ashley County sits right on the southern border of Arkansas.
Okay.
It's the second county in from the Mississippi River.
Oh, wow. So not far from the Mississippi at all.
No, not at all. To the west, you've got the Wachita River forming a natural boundary, and then it meets the Saline River.
Okay.
And that Saline River keeps going, marking the western border all the way up to the Drew County line.
All right. So Drew County is to the north.
That's right. And then to the east, Ashley County borders Chicot County.
Gotcha. So this is a pretty decent-sized area we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. It spans about 39 miles from east to west and 27 miles from north to south.
Wow. That's almost 1,000 square miles.
It is. It comes out to about 608,000 acres.
And what's interesting is how they emphasize how much of this land could actually be used.
Right.
Excluding about 35,000 acres that were prone to flooding, most of it was considered prime for growing crops.
Yeah, those river bottom lands along the Saline and Wachita were a different story.
Right.
They flooded annually, so not ideal for planting your main crops.
Makes sense.
But they were perfect for letting hogs and cattle roam free.
Oh, so still valuable in a different way.
Exactly. And get this, they even talk about these cane breaks that provided good winter pasture for the cattle.
Wow, so they really adapted to the natural resources they had.
Absolutely. And then running right down the center of the county, north to south, there was this ridge.
Oh, like a dividing line.
Exactly. Separating the Wachita and Saline basins on one side from the Bayou Bartholomew on the other.
Interesting. And that ridge had its own unique features too, I bet.
Oh, yeah. They talk about these scattered prairies along the top of it.
Oh, wow.
But for the most part, it was heavily wooded.
Lots of timber then.
Oh, you better believe it.
And what about the overall terrain?
They describe it as kind of rolling.
Rolling.
Yeah, like a series of gentle swells rising maybe 25 feet above the river bottoms, 50 feet above the bayou areas.
Okay, so not mountains, but definitely not flat either.
Right, exactly. And water was a major factor shaping this landscape. You've got the Wachita and Saline rivers in the west,
Right.
the Bayou Bartholomew to the east, and then all these smaller streams like Chaminahant Creek and Overflow Creek.
So plenty of water sources then.
Oh, yeah, abundant.
So tell me more about this Bayou Bartholomew. It sounds kind of unique.
It was. Unlike the rivers, it didn't flood as much.
Okay.
And its soil was alluvial, like river-deposited soil, but different from the Mississippi bottoms.
Interesting.
They even speculate that it might have been an old channel of the Arkansas River at one point, or even part of the Mississippi's ancient path.
Wow, you really get a sense of deep time when you think about that.
Right. And they describe it as very winding, with all these big lakes along its bends,
Oh, wow.
which apparently used to be part of the main channel.
So you can really picture how the water carved out this landscape over time.
Exactly. And those lakes, they served as reservoirs during high water,
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, regulating the water flow.
Very cool. Now, one more thing about the geography that caught my eye. The mounds.
Oh, yeah, the mounds.
They mention these small, kind of irregular mounds scattered across the landscape.
Right.
But then in the Bartholomew Bottom, there were larger, more significant ones.
Makes you wonder who built them, right?
It does. And what they were for.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we have a pretty good picture of the land now.
Right.
But what was it actually like to live in Ashley County back then?
Well, in terms of climate, the sources really highlight how diverse the agriculture was.
Diverse.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising given the location.
What do you mean?
Well, they talk about how they successfully grew all sorts of things. Peaches, plums, apricots, nectarines, grapes, cotton, sugarcane, you name it.
Wow, that is a lot of variety.
Right. And they were especially proud of their sweet potatoes, said they were exceptionally good.
So really resilient food systems in.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. Pears, strawberries, raspberries, corn, oats, sorghum, rye, even Irish potatoes.
So basically everything grew well there.
Pretty much.
Sounds like an ideal spot for farming. And the temperature must have been pretty good too, right?
Yeah, they say it never got below 0 degrees in the winter.
Wow, that's mild.
And in the summer, those Gulf breezes helped keep things cool.
So pretty comfortable year-round.
Exactly.
And, speaking of comfort, what about the natural beauty of the place?
Oh, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
They described this incredibly diverse range of trees. Magnolia, holly, beech, arbor vitae, pine, cypress, all kinds of gum trees, sycamore, basswood, oak, pecan, walnut, hickory, ash, elm.
Wow, that is quite the list.
Right. And then all the spring and summer blossoms, you can just imagine how vibrant it must have looked.
It does sound beautiful.
Oh, and they specifically mention it being good for raising livestock.
Oh, right. That makes sense with the grazing areas we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
And in terms of the main crops?
Cotton and corn were king, of course.
Yeah, not surprising for that time and place.
But you know what really stands out? The timber resources.
Really?
They go on and on about the incredible variety and quality of the timber. Softwoods, hardwoods, you name it. They estimate there was something like 50 million feet of cypress timber alone.
Wow, that's a huge amount.
Right, and the bayou areas were thick with cypress, hickory, and all different types of oak, and then that immense cane brake again on the eastern edge.
So clearly timber was a major asset.
Oh yeah, a huge economic potential there.
And of course you need a good water supply to thrive.
They say the domestic water supply was excellent.
Perfect.
And get this, they claim that if you lived outside of those bottomlands, you didn't have to worry about malaria.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and they talk about how healthy the women and children were in the highlands, even comparing their rosy cheeks to those you'd find in mountainous regions.
So basically a very healthy environment overall.
At least in certain parts. And they even emphasize how Bayou Bartholomew was better than the overflow areas.
Oh, why is that?
Well, they predicted it would have the highest population because the risk of malaria was lower there.
That makes sense.
You can see how geography, health, and the way people lived were all intertwined. Okay, so we have the lay of the land. Now let's talk about who were some of these early settlers who came to Ashley County.
Okay, the memoirs mention a few folks who settled around Fountain Hill as early as 1840.
That early, wow.
There was William Daniels, who came from Alabama, Elijah Kirkpatrick from North Carolina, and Mr. Sparks and Mr. Dean from Georgia.
A real mix of folks.
Then there was Nathaniel Denson, a preacher, a Captain Durton from Virginia who lived at Longview, and a very important figure named William S. Willis.
Oh, what made him so important?
Well, he became the first county and probate judge when the county was organized.
Wow, a real founding father then.
Exactly. And they describe him as having good, hard sense, natural talent, and a real originality that made him a natural leader.
Those are some great qualities.
But get this, when it came to making legal decisions, his sense of what was right often outweighed the legal arguments presented by the lawyers.
Really? That's interesting.
They even tell a story about this lawyer, W.M. Harrison, who later became a Chief Justice.
Okay.
And he's making this elaborate legal argument in court, which, by the way, was held in someone's house, with a big porch and a mulberry tree in the yard.
That was very informal.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But Judge Willis's strong moral compass just overruled all those legal technicalities. It really gives you a glimpse into how justice worked on the frontier.
It does. It really does. And what about Judge Willis himself? What was he like?
Well, physically, he was a pretty imposing figure.
Oh, yeah.
About 5'10", 240 pounds, with strong facial features. He arrived from Mississippi in 1846. He was the surveyor by trade, already in his mid-50s at the time.
Okay.
Sadly, he didn't live in Ashley County for very long. He died around 1855 or 1856.
Less than 10 years.
I know, it's a shame. And then they mention another popular guy, J.B. Savage, who came from Alabama.
Okay.
He didn't stay permanently, but he was elected county clerk twice before going back home.
Still made a mark, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, and they also mentioned a place called Eisner Springs.
What was that?
Well, it was about 12 miles east of Hamburg,
Yeah.
apparently a significant Methodist campground with a big pavilion for their annual camp meetings.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I bet those were really important events back then.
I bet so. Not just for religious reasons, but for social connection, too.
Right, especially in a rural area where people might not see each other that often.
Exactly. Now, the memoirs really come alive when they start talking about the individual citizens.
Oh, yeah, those biographies are fascinating.
There's just so much there. It's hard to choose just a few, but let's try to highlight some that give us a good sense of the different people who called Ashley County home in 1890.
Okay, sounds good. Which we start?
Well, how about Andrew J. Allen?
Oh, okay, what about him?
He was from Georgia and had been living in Ashley County since 1860. They call him a progressive farmer.
Aggressive.
Yeah, like he was always trying to improve things. He started with 240 acres, then expanded his holdings to 1,000, and eventually settled on 100 acres under cultivation.
Wow, that's a lot of land.
I know, right? And he wasn't just a farmer. He
Oh.
also served in Price's raid during the Civil War, fought in 42 engagements, and was never wounded or captured.
That's incredible.
I know. After the war, he went back to farming and clearly did well for himself.
Good for him.
He also served as a justice of the peace and was a member of the Missionary Baptist Church.
So a real pillar of the community.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. His wife, Louisa J. Daniel, was the daughter of a pioneer named William Daniel, and they had 10 children.
Wow, 10 children.
Yeah, big families were common back then. Okay, let's talk about another interesting figure, Honorable Hogan Allen.
All right, what's his story?
Well, he was a preacher from North Carolina, born in 1820, but he didn't come to Ashley County until 1881.
Okay.
His early education wasn't much, but he became known for his powerful speaking abilities.
So a natural orator.
Exactly. He married Frances E. Rushing, and they had 13 children.
13.
Yeah, I know. And he was a planter with 300 acres, 50 of which were under cultivation, a council mason, and an ordained Baptist minister for almost 30 years. But here's the kicker. He served 4 terms in the state legislature and was the state senator-elect at the time this publication was being written.
So a pretty influential guy.
Very influential. And then there's Christopher C. Allen, also from Georgia. He arrived in Arkansas in 1860.
Okay.
He was a farmer and served as county assessor for a while. But he was also successful in real estate.
Int-
He believed in diversified farming, not just focusing on cotton, but growing corn, oats, raising livestock.
Makes sense. Spreading the risk.
Exactly. And in 1880, he became the postmaster of Hamburg, so his children could have access to better schooling.
That's dedication.
It is, right. Okay, now let's talk about Marquise D. Boyd.
All right, what about him?
He was born in South Carolina in 1833 and came to Arkansas with his family when he was just a boy in 1840.
Okay.
They settled in Chicot County. His father was a prominent farmer. Marquis himself started farming in 1868, served in the Confederate Army, then moved to California for a bit before coming back to Ashley County.
So a bit more of a varied life than some of the others.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, now E.J. Kamak's story is also closely tied to the Civil War. He served in a Louisiana regiment, fought in major battles like Port Hudson and Vicksburg.
Wow, that's intense.
After the war, he moved to Ashley County in 1881. First, he rented a farm, then he moved to Hamburg, and finally settled on a plantation. He had 9 children and was a member of the Baptist Church and a Mason.
You can imagine how much those war experiences must have shaped his life.
Absolutely. Now, John T. Carnahan was a native Arkansan, born in Chicot County in 1849.
Okay.
He was a farmer and miller, operating a mill on Bayou Bartholomew. Sadly, his father died in the Confederate Army, and his mother passed away the same year.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know, it's heartbreaking. He eventually ran a saw and gin mill, was married twice, and had 5 children.
Okay.
He was also a member of the Knights of Pythias and the Knights of Honor.
Those fraternal organizations were a big deal back then.
They were, providing social support and networking opportunities. And politically, he was a Democrat.
Another example of the lasting impact of the Civil War on families.
Definitely. Now, Dr. E.J. Christian was a physician in Portland.
A doctor. Interesting.
His father was an early settler who actually founded Marie Silene Landing and even organized the first company from the county to serve in the Confederate Army.
Wow. So deep roots in the community.
Right. Dr. Christian was born in Ashley County in 1854, studied medicine, and graduated in 1860. Then he served in the Confederate Army as a doctor. After the war, he set up a successful practice.
It's fascinating how these pioneer families sometimes produced professionals like doctors.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about William A. Clark.
Okay.
He was born in Georgia in 1838, came to Arkansas in 1859. He also served in the Confederate Army and was wounded at Richmond.
Okay.
He was tax assessor for a couple of years, married Lula F. Dean, and they had 9 children.
Another big family.
He was a farmer, owned 280 acres, and was active in the Masonic Lodge, Oddfellows, and the Methodist Church.
Wow. Involved in a lot of things.
He was. Now, G.W. Cone was a planter in Snyder. He was originally from Alabama, born in 1820, owned about 500 acres.
That's a substantial amount of land.
It is. He's married 3 times and had a total of 12 children. And he was really active in churches and schools.
Sounds like a real community-minded person.
Yeah, definitely. Now, his son, R.L. Cone, also a planter in Snyder, was born in Alabama in 1846. He really built his success through hard work.
How so?
Well, he started with very little and managed to acquire property. He was married twice and had 10 children.
Okay.
He was a Mason, a member of the Knights of Honor, and a deacon in the Baptist Church. You know, seeing all these repeated affiliations with fraternal organizations and churches really tells you something about the social fabric of the time.
Yeah, for sure. They provided a lot of support and structure in people's lives.
Exactly. Henry H. Kruk had a pretty interesting path. He was born in South Carolina in 1825 and came to Arkansas.
Okay.
He did some farming, then went into the dry goods business, and later became a Methodist minister.
Yeah.
He was ordained in 1860.
Wow, quite a range of occupations.
He also served as a justice of the peace and coroner in Drew County before the war, and was a Royal Archmason.
So he was really involved in both religious and secular life.
Very much so. Now, Frank K. Daniel was born in Arkansas in 1838. He served in the Confederate Army, got wounded at Gettysburg, was a farmer with 240 acres, a justice of the peace, and a Methodist.
Another story marked by the Civil War experience.
It really is. Now, Rufus L. Denson was actually born in Ashley County in 1846 and served in the Confederate Army as well, participating in Price's raid.
Wow, so he saw some action.
Yeah, he did. He became a farmer, owning 160 acres, and was a member of the Missionary Baptist Church.
As someone born and raised in the county, his perspective must have been unique.
Definitely. Okay, R.C. Dew, born in Mississippi in 1853, came to Arkansas as a child.
Okay.
He was a farmer with 113 acres, married Maggie J. Nutt. They had 6 children. He was a Baptist and a Democrat.
Kind of a typical story of post-war migration and settling down as a farmer.
You could say that, yeah. Now, William Dew was born in Missouri in 1839. He came to Arkansas after the Civil War.
Okay.
He was a blacksmith and an engineer. Also served in the Confederate Army, surrendered with Lee, married Mary Ann Lowry. They had 5 children.
Interesting combination of skills.
I know, right?
Yeah.
He was a Democrat and involved with the Agricultural Wheel, a farmers' organization.
Showing that post-war activism among farmers.
Yeah. And he was also a Baptist.
All right. What about John C. Downey?
He was born in Alabama in 1846 and came to Ashley County in 1850.
Okay.
Sadly, his father died in an accident when he was young.
Oh, no.
He served in the Confederate Army, worked as a salesman, then a farmer, and eventually studied law.
Wow, a real go-getter.
He practiced law in another county for a while before returning to Ashley County and becoming the county and probate judge in 1888.
Quite a journey.
It is, yeah. Now, Eli Evans was born in Maryland in 1839. He came to Arkansas after the war, served in the Confederate Army, briefly held the position of county treasurer, and sadly died in an accident.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, he was a Mason and a Methodist.
A reminder of how precarious life could be back then.
Definitely. John B. Franklin was born in Mississippi in 1849 and came to Ashley County in 1850. He was a farmer with 420 acres, married 3 times, and had several children. He was a Democrat, a member of the Knights of Honor, and a deacon in the Missionary Baptist Church.
Sounds like a successful and well-respected member of the community.
Absolutely. Joseph P. Gee was born in Arkansas in 1835.
Okay.
He was a farmer and stockman, owned almost 1,000 acres, served in the Confederate Army, married Mary A. Simpson, and they had 11 children.
Another large family.
He was a Methodist and a Democrat.
So very much rooted in the community and the state.
Yeah. Dr. Robert J. George was a dentist, born in Louisiana, raised in Mississippi. He fought with Price's raid in the Confederate Army, later became a farmer owning 160 acres, married Carrie Ladd, and they had 11 children.
Wow, 11 children.
I know. He was a missionary Baptist, a Mason, and a Democrat.
So both a professional and a farmer.
That's right. Joseph W. Gilliam was born in Mississippi in 1837. He was a farmer and stock raiser who fought in the Confederate Army, was captured, and later exchanged. Before settling in Ashley County, he worked as a teacher and a magistrate.
So a pretty varied career.
Yeah, he got around. He married Mary E. Baker and was a Mason, a Democrat, and a Methodist.
Really reflects the tumultuous times and the different roles people had to play.
Definitely. Now, John W. Harris was born in Tennessee in 1828 and had been living in Ashley County since 1845.
Wow. A longtime resident.
Yeah. He was a farmer with 240 acres, was married twice, and had 2 children.
Okay.
He was a Methodist, a Knight of Honor, and a Democrat.
Another example of those community ties.
Exactly. William T. Harris was a merchant and planter in Poplar Bluff.
Right.
He was born in Alabama in 1843 and came to Ashley County in 1862. He served in the Confederate Army, then became a successful merchant and a large landowner, owning 10,000 acres.
10,000 acres. That's enormous.
I know, right? He was married twice, had 11 children, was a Presbyterian, a member of the Knights and Ladies of Honor, and a Democrat.
Clearly a very successful man.
He was. Now, James W. Hawkins was born in Ashley County in 1840 and served in the Confederate Army.
Another one.
He was a farmer with 240 acres, married Mrs. Wooldridge, and had 4 children. He also served as school commissioner, was a Mason, and a Baptist.
Really dedicated to his community.
Yeah. Jason C. Hill was a planter in Poplar Bluff, born in Alabama.
Okay.
He came to Ashley County in 1874 after spending some time in Louisiana. He was a farmer, owned and leased land, and operated a gin and grist mill.
So a diversified agricultural operation?
Yeah, very much so. He married Polly Salmon, they had 11 children, and he was a Methodist.
Took a later arrival to the area.
That's right. Now, J.R. Hill was born in Alabama in 1855 and came to Arkansas in 1868. He was a farmer with 140 acres, married Miss Mattie Harville, and was described as intelligent and enterprising.
Sounds like he had the right qualities for success.
Yeah, he did. Now, John D. Holloway helped his father on the farm and served in the Confederate Army.
Okay.
He owned land, was married twice, had 2 children, was a Mason, and a Knight of Pythias.
Again, those fraternal ties.
Yeah. H.M. Johnson was born in Mississippi in 1834 and came to Arkansas. He fought in the Confederate Army, was wounded at Gettysburg, returned home to farm, married Amanda Smith, and they had 13 children.
13. That seems to be a recurring theme.
It does, doesn't it? He was a Democrat and a Baptist.
Another life deeply impacted by the war.
Very much so. William J. Ladd was a planter in Snyder who also served in the Confederate Army and became a farmer.
Okay.
Now, Peter Lawson had a really interesting story.
Wow, yeah. Tell me more.
He was born in Scotland and came to the U.S. around 1790. He worked as a clerk, a bank clerk, a merchant, then studied law and practiced in Ashley County.
Wow, that's a lot of different jobs.
He was also a justice of the peace, a county and probate judge, and a county clerk. He was married twice and had 1 son.
Quite a remarkable journey from immigrant to prominent citizen.
Yeah. William F. McCombs was a merchant in Hamburg. He was born in Kentucky in 1838 and came to Arkansas in 1868.
Okay.
He also served in the Confederate Army, then established a successful mercantile business in Hamburg. He was married 3 times and had several children. He was a Baptist, a master of the Masonic Lodge, a Knight of Honor, and a Democrat.
So really involved in the business and social life of the town.
Absolutely. Dr. John McDermott was a physician, born in Virginia in 1815. His father fought in the War of 1812.
Wow, so a family with a military tradition?
You could say that.
Yeah.
He worked as a teacher and a clerk before studying medicine and setting up his practice in Ashley County.
That's interesting. A lot of these doctors seem to have had other careers before medicine.
Yeah, it's true. He married Mary Allen. They had 6 children, and he was a Mason, a Democrat, and a missionary Baptist.
Really contributing to the development of the community.
Yeah. Jacob McDougall was born in Alabama in 1839. He came to Ashley County, was a farmer, served in the Confederate Army, married Mrs. Rogers, and they had 6 children. He was a missionary Baptist, a member of the Farmers Alliance, and a Democrat.
That Farmers Alliance was an important movement for advocating for farmers' rights.
Yeah, definitely. Now, J.B. McDuffie was born in Georgia in 1817 and came to Arkansas in 1842.
All right.
He was a farmer with 280 acres, was married 3 times, and had several children.
Another longtime resident.
He was. Dr. Ben F. Moore was a physician in Bartholomew, born in North Carolina in 1840. He served as a first lieutenant in the Confederate Army, was wounded at Gettysburg, surrendered at Appomattox, and then came back to practice medicine in Ashley County.
That's dedication, returning to medicine after all that.
He really is. W.N. Nutt came to Arkansas in 1851 and became a farmer with 180 acres. After his father died in the Confederate Army, he took over the family farm. He married Sally E. Dew. They had 4 children, and he was a Baptist and a Democrat.
Another example of the war's impact on families.
So many of these stories have that thread running through them.
It's undeniable.
F.D. Parker, born in Georgia, came to Arkansas in 1853 and was a farmer. He married Amanda A. Glanton.
Okay.
John D. Pugh, born in Mississippi in 1839, came to Ashley County in 1850. He served in the Confederate Army and was severely wounded at Gettysburg.
Oh, wow.
Despite that, he became a successful merchant, first in Orion and Johnsville, then in Hamburg.
That's amazing. What resilience.
I know, right? He married Lottie Hampton, they had 8 children, and he was a Democrat.
Really shows the entrepreneurial spirit of the time.
It does, yeah. John C. Pyron was born in North Carolina, spent some time in Mississippi, then came to Arkansas in 1856.
Okay.
He was a farmer with 400 acres, served as a tanner for the Confederacy, and held the position of Justice of the Peace. He married Mary Isabella Collock, they had 6 children, and he was a Democrat.
So both a farmer and a community leader?
That's right. Jonas Ramsor was a planter in Hamburg, born in North Carolina in 1810. He was an early settler in Ashley County.
Okay.
He had a tannery business, was a Presbyterian elder, and was instrumental in establishing the first church in the county.
Wow. A real pioneer in the truest sense.
Yeah, he was. During the Civil War, he had health problems and was discharged. He was married twice and had 9 children.
Really shows how important those early settlers were in shaping the religious and social landscape.
Definitely.
Yeah.
George H. Richardson was a merchant in Milo, born in Drew County in 1855, raised there, started his business in Milo, and became postmaster.
Okay.
He married Mattie Harville. They had 5 children, and he was a Mason, a Knight of Honor, a member of the Christian Church, and a Democrat.
A lot of these folks were active in multiple organizations.
Yeah, it's very common. Dr. John W. Scherer was a physician in Poplar Bluff. He was born in Alabama in 1841, came to Ashley County in 1859, studied medicine, served as a doctor in the Confederate Army, and then established a successful medical practice. Expert speaker.